Hi everybody, welcome back to Burns Addiction. Today we have got a gear review for you. We will be talking about Parks Audio WAXWING. This is a phono preamp that uses digital signal processing, which I have been using for about 2 years here at home in both my systems, the downstairs system and the upstairs system. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I've been using it and why I think it's a great device. So this review will have 4 parts. The first, I'll tell you a little about what this is, how it works. The second part, I'll talk about how I use it in my system downstairs as a phono preamp. And then I'll talk a little about how I've been using it upstairs between my DJ mixer and my amplifier as a line level DSP. And then lastly, I'll give you some concluding thoughts and my opinion on whether this might be the right device for you or not. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so what is this device? This device is a phono preamp that uses digital signal processing. A phono preamp, as many of you know, is a preamplification stage that sits between your turntable and your amplifiers or powered speakers. For DJs, that's going to be your DJ mixer in most cases. Why is this a unique phono preamp? Well, because it uses DSP. What is DSP? DSP is digital signal processing. Effectively, what this device does is it converts your analog signal from your turntable into a digital signal. And once it's digital, you can do a lot of interesting things with that signal. You can do all sorts of different types of processing that this device allows you to do out of the box, which ends up impacting your sound. Once it converts it to digital, it's going to give you some really interesting options for you to tweak your sound. The most obvious ones are tone controls, or what most people call tone controls, the ability to reduce the bass, the mid, the trebles, or increase them, which is neat and useful, but it has some really special features which you wouldn't necessarily get in a standard DJ mixer or a standard phono preamp. The first of those features, which I think is phenomenal, is called Magic. What Magic does is it removes clicks and pops from the sound signal from records that have those issues. As someone who digs for records a lot, is buying records in flea markets, in record stores that oftentimes don't have listening stations, I'm oftentimes disappointed when I get home and even after I clean the record, it still has cracks, ticks, pops. What this guy does is it takes those away. And in doing that, I found it doesn't really affect the playback quality. It sounds really, really, really good. It just takes away the noise, which is fantastic. The other interesting features that it has is it has some interesting EQ filters that add a different sound profile that you wouldn't get necessarily from standard tone controls of bass, mids, and highs. Those are air and warmth. Air kind of adds a little bit of sheen to the high end in some ways, and it makes sort of muffled records sound a little bit clearer. I tend to turn it on and off depending on the record, whether it needs it or not. And warmth in some ways sort of replicates what you would get from, I suppose, a tube amp or other sort of traditionally warm devices, and adds a little bit of mid distortion. It's a neat effect. What I found really, really, really compelling about this solution in particular is that you control all of this from an app on your phone on Bluetooth. And so you can go sit in your listening station and play with all those tone controls. High, mids, lows, the magic, the air, the warmth, all of that can be adjusted on the fly. So you can really dial in the right sound profile that you want for an individual record or an individual listening experience. And so I had a blast pulling out old vinyl that I knew was busted, that had a lot of noise on it, running it through this and giving it almost like a second life, right? And it also allowed me to then go digging around the world and, look at a record and be like, yeah, this looks like it's gonna be okay, but you know what? I'm gonna be fine, because even if it has a little bit of noise on it, I can play it with my WAXWING and it should sound pretty good. And that's actually played out really well for me over the last couple of years that I've had it, as a way to give me more confidence in my digging and ability to listen to those records. So now let's talk about how the WAXWING worked out for me. As some of you may have seen from my videos, I have 2 setups. I have an upstairs setup where I'm really more of a traditional DJ focused setup. I have CDJs, I have a Master Sounds mixer. It's running into a Sabaj A30A digital amp, which is powering the JBL L100 Classics. And up here, I am mixing vinyl with digital on the CDJs and having friends over. It's really more of a pure DJ focused setup. And downstairs, it's more of an audiophile focused setup. Now, there's still 2 turntables there I can mix, but there's no CDJs. And oftentimes I find myself sitting down and listening to music downstairs more than I'm mixing it. And when I first got the WAXWING, I naturally felt like it was more of an audiophile listening product, and I installed it downstairs. And I'll talk a little about that first before I tell you what I've done upstairs with it. So this is my downstairs system, and this is where I first used the WAXWING when I received it a couple of years ago. And the system looked a lot different back then. I basically had 1 turntable and my NAD C368 amplifier running into my Klipsch Cornwall speakers. When I received the WAXWING, I was using the internal phono preamp of the NAD as my preamp for my turntable. And so the WAXWING really was a preamp upgrade, call it. And it sat between the turntable and the amplifier, and it was plugged into the amplifier through the optical in on the amplifier. I really liked it. It sounded, to my ears, better than the in-house phono preamp on the NAD. How did it sound better? It sounded a little bit more clean, a little more detailed, but quite frankly, what really was amazing to me was that magic feature that took away the crackles from old vinyl, and it also allowed me to really tweak the sound using tone controls, air, and warmth to my liking. And so I had a really, really good time with it for about a year until I bought the Bozak. And when I bought the Bozak, I was really blown away by the phono stage on this guy. And the WAXWING kind of fell into misuse. I still had it running as a line into this for crackly records, but I often found that I was just using the Bozak without turning on the WAXWING really. And that's when I had the idea of bringing it upstairs and using it in a completely different capacity, which I'll talk about in a moment. So after using the WAXWING downstairs as a traditional phono preamp, I had an idea to bring it upstairs and try it in a new capacity, which I don't think anybody else has talked about online, at least not on YouTube. And I think it's gonna be really interesting for those of you that are DJs. So what I did was I put the WAXWING in between my DJ mixer, which is a Master Sounds, and my amplifier that I'm using right now, which is a Sabage A30A, which is a chip-based amp. It's a digital amp. And what I was doing basically was taking the line level signal from my mixer, using the WAXWING at the line level, which you can do, and then having it go into my amplifier. And by doing that, I was able to do a couple of really interesting things. One is I left Magic on, and so as I'm mixing up here and playing old records, it's taking away that crackle and pop, which is great in terms of allowing me to basically confidently play older records and they mix nicely. The second thing that I was able to do was tweak my sound using, the air, the warmth, and the traditional EQ settings. But the last and most important thing I was able to do here was use the parametric EQ feature that is built into this to tweak some problematic room modes. What does that mean? This room, as many of you have commented on my other videos, doesn't sound very good. It has a lot of echo, has a high ceiling, you have a hollow wall back here. It is a bit of an audiophile nightmare. And I am a renter, and so I don't want to go and completely redo my room because I'm probably gonna be leaving this place at some point in time, and the landlord would not be happy if I did that. And so I was looking for a solution that would allow me to sort of tweak some of these troublesome room modes, and the WAXWING actually got me pretty far along in doing that using its internal digital signal processing and its internal parametric EQ. The way I did it was I used an app called Room Curve to test the different levels at which my room had resonances. I found the most problematic one, and then I used the app in the WAXWING to basically lower the frequency resonance at that particular frequency. And that actually allowed me to enjoy playback of my records, of music in this room more than I did before I had the WAXWING. And so actually, the WAXWING is now permanently in this room. And it's fantastic because I can control it from the Bluetooth app, and I can actually tweak the EQ depending on where I'm sitting in the room. A lot of times I'm working at my desk over here, and there I find that I have to lower the bass quite a bit while I'm working, and I can now do that from my phone. When I have people over, I don't necessarily need to do that, and so I turn that off. So what it's really done for me is it's given me an amazing ability to control the sound within this room and really improve the quality of the playback of my records and music. So fantastic actually as a kind of digital signal processing device that's also a preamp that allows you to kind of tweak your signal for not a lot of money. What do I think of the WAXWING? What's my conclusion on it? I think it's a very, very solid phono pre-stage. You shouldn't worry that it's digital. It sounded better than the phono pre-stage in my NAD amp. It sounded better than all of my other older DJ mixers as a phono pre-stage. It's a really, really nice sounding phono pre-stage that gives you a lot of optionality. So if you're looking for a phono pre-stage that also comes built in with the magic feature, the EQ, etc., this is a really nice solution. Is it the best phono pre-stage? Not necessarily. I think my Bozak as a phono pre-stage sounds better. That said, I also really, really loved it as something that can sit between a DJ mixer and your sound system and allow you to tweak the sound in a really particular, interesting way to help it sound better in your room, to remove the crackles and pops from records. So in the application that I'm using it, which I realize is quite unique, I actually think it's amazing. And I think for other DJs that are starting their audiophile journey or other diggers that are tired of clicks and pops or have a problematic room, it's actually really, really, really great. And I realize that's not necessarily its original intended purpose, but that's what I think is so cool about this device, is that it gives you so much flexibility that you can do so many things with it that it's just a really fun, interesting device to have. And what's even better is that it's built by a small company, Parks Audio, and you can actually email Shannon Parks, the creator, and he'll answer back. So I've been asking him questions over the years and he gets back to me really quickly. Beyond that, he's updating the app pretty frequently. So you also get new features, which is completely different than buying a device from a more traditional hi-fi or audio company. It's really supporting small business, it's doing something unique, it's getting a device that's highly flexible. And so for all those reasons, I actually really love this device and would highly recommend it. All right, thank you so much for watching another episode of Burns Addiction. Please hit us with a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And feel free to drop in the comments whether you liked this video, whether you didn't like this video, whether you like this device, whether you think I'm full of nonsense. Always interesting to hear everybody's opinion. I do realize this is a little bit of a controversial device in that it's taking something analog and making it digital. I'd love to have the debate around that with all of you. So please drop your comments in there, and looking forward to the next video.